Aetna's already settled with the New York attorney on this one for what, $17.5 million?
Yeah, a little bit more than what I make in a year.
Don't say that.
You're listening to the Help Me with HIPAA podcast, where HIPAA and humor collide to make learning fun. Your delightful hosts are Donna Grindle and David Sims. Relax. HIPAA help is on the way.
Welcome to the Help Me with HIPAA podcast. My name is David Sims of HIPAA for MSPs, and joining me is Donna Grindle of Just Carden.
Just Jack.
Yeah, just Carden. CardenHQ.com. So as you can tell, for those who listen, I am under the weather.
Yeah, the weather's whooping up on you.
It is kicking my booty. So I feel better than I did this morning. You know, you wake up and it's like your eyes won't open at all.
Oh.
You know, and I'm walking around sounding like Barry White. Come on, boo-boo.
It doesn't work for you, though, does it?
It does not. It does not. I tried to sing, but that didn't work either. So, other than that, the show must go on.
Yeah. Ain't nobody got time for you to be sick.
I know.
Yeah.
So, speaking of being out there and doing stuff,
Really? Get out there.
You got a lot of stuff coming up.
Yeah, and by the time this one airs, I think I will have done some of these, but the Ambulatory Surgery Center Association of Georgia and South Carolina, their joint semi-annual conference and trade show, that's February 16th. I know. So, next week I'll be speaking, so we can't be recording then.
Oh, sad.
I know you'll be sad. We'll have to make it up on a different day than Friday. Then the following week is the Hall Booth Sterling Seacrest Partners HIPAA with the Experts Breakfast Seminar on February the 22nd. I am also teaching an online course for ForMed Approved, the guys there. Had me develop a cybersecurity officer course, and what we talk about is using the NIST cybersecurity framework with HIPAA. Mm-hmm. And building to manage cybersecurity, not just HIPAA compliance, but managing cybersecurity. And you can get information at the ForMed Approved site. Of course, there's a link on our site. And if you use Grindle20, you get a nice little discount from me. Nice. The Georgia Access Management Association, speaking for them on March the 16th. And it's actually being hosted at one of my clients' offices. So that worked out nicely for me. And then, of course, JAWS Society annual conference in Newport Beach, California, April 22nd through the 25th. We are in discussions for doing an event in Southern California that week before then. So if you're interested, let us know. And the North Georgia Medical Management Association monthly meeting in Dalton, Georgia, June the 14th.
Nice.
So that'll get me to the summertime, which is when I'm really eager to get to.
And in between all that, we have the HIPAA Boot Camp.
Virtual edition.
I know. So by popular demand, we've had people ask about doing the boot camp online because some people just can't make it to good old Georgia.
Yeah. Well, it does make it more complicated these days when you can do everything virtually to get in person. And in person, there's a lot of advantages to it, but we're going to see how this works. We're going to, get out there and give it a go. The good college try.
Just don't, do your, I virtually did my risk assessment. I virtually started.
Oh, yeah.
So, that's going to be in March, mid-March. For all the information about it, you can go to thehipaabootcamp.com. Get all that information. We do have early bird pricing until the end of the month, end of February, if you don't know which month we're in.
Yeah.
So get out there and get started on that. We had some great feedback on the past couple we've had. And the pricing and everything is even better. So, good stuff.
get out there, get it done. And note that you can register. One registration covers up to 3 people on your team because we know everybody likes to get together when they're doing these. And so keep that in mind if you've got more than one person that needs to sit in. But only one review session for your organization, but still, it's a good deal.
Mm-hmm. Very good. And so that brings us to today's topic. I think you might need a lawyer.
Do you need a lawyer? Don't you love that on TV when somebody always looks with their bit? Do I need a lawyer?
Yeah.
If you are asking the question, the answer is probably yes.
We have a commercial up here. It just comes on and it says, call our offices now. And I'm like, for what? I'm tempted just to call. And then when I answer, I go, I don't know. The dude on TV said call.
I can see you doing it one night just because you've heard it one time too many.
I know. It's crazy. There's no, usually it says like if you've been injured in an accident. This just says call the law offices now.
I think you should
I have no idea why I'm calling.
All right. Well, if you do get around to doing it one night late, you got to let us know what happened.
Yeah. I may do it live.
Yeah. There you go. And we'll record it.
Yeah.
So yes, do you need a lawyer is becoming a bigger question in today's world of privacy and security being thrown out the window in some cases. And there's so many different cases that I just read about that I thought it was important for us to review how many different ways you can get into legal trouble when it comes to information privacy and security. And part of this whole process, there's a lot of legal stuff happening. And there's all of the laws that they're talking about in the different states and all of you got the European Union implementing the GDPR, the General Data Protection Rules or whatever. And then, of course, HIPAA's just kind of hanging out there, been there forever, but now it's being actually used in court. So there's so many different things going on. I had a lot of legal questions. What does this mean? And I met an attorney who she actually knew what NIST CSF was when I mentioned it. And I'm like, hey, I want to talk to you. And so we're going to interview her in a couple of weeks. And so it'll be a little while before it's actually published. But if you have any questions about something in your state and the laws in your state that they're discussing, of course, we're not giving out legal advice because we're not attorneys and we don't do legal advice on this show. But if you have any legal questions, let us know. And these cases that we're going to discuss may actually trigger some.
I bet they will.
So, number 1, let's go to Oregon.
Yeah, that's St. Charles Health System is being sued for $500,000 because a nurse shared medical records inappropriately. Imagine that.
Yeah, and then these things, here's what had happened was in May 2016, there's a patient that comes in, they're injured in an all-terrain vehicle accident. And there's a nurse that is not involved in TPO for this patient, which is treatment, payment, and healthcare operations, had no involvement whatsoever in the patient's care or payment, which means they have no HIPAA reason to be looking at it. And she did anyway. The nurse looked at the records and then shared the blood alcohol content from the record with a friend of both the patient and the nurse. So clearly they both know somebody. And for some reason, this nurse felt like the person that they jointly knew needed to know the blood alcohol content. Not quite sure why. Don't really want to know. It's irrelevant. But the patient's suing the health system for $500,000. Now, what's going to be tricky in this case is this is the same health system that just had a case where a nursing assistant pleaded guilty to computer crime charges. I don't know exactly how that fell in, but she was just curious and looked at 2,459 patient records. And so she just pled guilty to this in September and taken a bit of a problem with it. fines, and I think there was even a little jail time or whatnot. But the bottom line here is, don't be snooping around because legal problems will follow. And I can bet you, based on the nursing assistant pleading guilty to crimes, that nurse is going to need a lawyer too.
I would think so.
Yeah. So, just because you got to tell your best girlfriend what had happened.
Mm-hmm.
And, I bet he was drinking.
Yeah, we saw an article earlier in the week about just something very similar where a doctor was looking at medical records, and he was doing it, to compile information for kind of like a research thing he was doing that nobody knew about.
Well, yeah, he was supposed to be researching.
Yeah, that's what he says. But yeah, he got a little jail time.
Yeah, well, this guy was a researcher, and apparently he was so bad at his job, everybody knew he was going to be let go.
Mm-hmm.
So then he would just sit in there, and instead of doing like research, he just decided for his own personal entertainment, he would look at patient records. But that was high-profile patients, well-known movie stars, television personalities, public office people. What you got going on, dude? And the point, and this article, it was absolutely hysterical for me. Now, I know it wasn't funny for him because he seriously apparently said these things because he never shared the information. He never tried to sell the information about anything. He just was looking. And so he hires his defense attorney who tells him, well, you illegally accessed over 300 patient records. So you got over 300. They're only going to charge you with 4 counts. So you're lucky. And the doctor's like, I didn't do anything wrong. Now, this is that reference where the doctors always tell you they don't need the HIPAA training.
Right. Because
they understand it. And he's saying, I didn't do anything wrong. I didn't tell anybody. I didn't sell anything. And the attorney goes, they're not charging you with selling it or telling anybody. They're charging you for looking at it without a valid reason, which, that's why the nurse probably needs a lawyer. So even in the last few instances, apparently he was still doing it after he was unemployed, which that brings up other questions. But the doctor insists that he didn't even know that was a crime. I didn't know that was a crime. Well, there's some other things there. Your employer should have been training you. But he's sentenced to 4 months in prison.
Ooh.
Then a year of supervised release and a $2,000 fine. Now, what was interesting is that the court in their ruling said that how did they phrase it? The plain text of the statute does not limit its application to people who knew their actions were illegal.
Just because you didn't know. Ignorance is no excuse for the law.
Well, before high tech, HIPAA had this, affirmative defense option. So you could say, I didn't know. And now that's all gone. And it's a misdemeanor. The misdemeanor applies to defendants who knowingly obtained individual identifiable health information relating to an individual and obtained that information in violation of HIPAA, according to the court, which I thought was pretty interesting there, that all these people who claim, oh, well, I'll just say I don't know, or I don't need the training. And clearly, but here's what was, this gets into how important legal stuff is when you make those assumptions, because we knew about assumptions, don't we, David?
Yeah.
The key language, according to the court, was, quote, knowingly and in violation of this part. And the doctor said knowingly means I didn't know it, I'm good. And wanted it to be knowingly, comma, in violation of this part. Well, then it would say that you were knowingly doing it and knew you violated. But that would presume you had knowledge. And the court says, no, it says and. And And as long as and is in there, the court decision says we cannot ignore and. There you go. So, the guy's, he's done a plea, and who knows where this one will end up. But again, not doing those things that everybody assumes are bad, still needed an attorney. Clearly, still going to need one. Clearly, if they're going to try to fight that.
Mm-hmm.
Now, the next one, though, got my attention because it wasn't just a HIPAA issue, although it is a HIPAA issue. That's not what the big case is about. The case is about a state law. So this is in Kansas. Everything's different in Kansas. But here's a company, Pearly Mays Compassion and Care.
I don't know why that's funny, but
I know. I don't know why it made me laugh, but it did. It's just kind of sweet, It sounds like something, but that's the thing. In the Midwest, everybody is just so nice so often in the Midwest, and you get names that really sound just as Southern as any. But they do care for disabled people. And it's like home health care. And they violated a Kansas Consumer Protection Act known as the Wayne-Owen Act. And they've had to pay $8,750 in civil penalties. But here's the kicker. The reason that they had to do it is in the course of this is the details in the article, and there'll be links to all these, so you can see we're not making them up. So this is June last year. During the course of assisting the Topeka Police Department in executing a search warrant, so I'm not really sure what that was all about, special agents of the Kansas Attorney General's office observed patient and employee records with personal information in one of the owner's homes, which was also one of the office locations of the company. So this is a home office for the owner of the company, and just in open view, unsecured, accessible to anyone in the residence, including persons who had no legitimate business reason to access this information, were employee and patient records. Yeah, I know. And so it said, they failed to implement and maintain reasonable procedures and practices to protect personal information and take reasonable steps to destroy or arrange for secure destruction of records when the records are no longer being used. So this was using state law, and technically they could have probably brought some HIPAA law up in there too, but they have not. So that one was very interesting to me because it, involved a home office, which now all of my friends can understand why I'm paranoid about not letting you in my area. You do not go into the office. You can see it from afar.
Yeah, but I wonder too, though, being that they were executing a search warrant, it sounds like there were some other troubles going on.
Well, it could be, I'm not saying, but, maybe they have a teenage son that kind of gotten into some trouble with some, they might be selling things that they shouldn't. Who knows what the search warrant was about, but it wasn't about it being there and the search warrant finding it. It was about it being there and anybody could walk in and see it. So what they're charging them with clearly was happening all the time.
Mm-hmm.
Now, it could be a lot of legal wrangling. It could be somebody that owns a business has gotten in a fight with the attorney general. It could be a whole LabMD kind of scenario. Who knows? But the bottom line is they were able to use state law to apply a civil penalty in this case. So those are all individual actions that involved individuals with possession when they shouldn't have, or not protecting it when they should, patient data. But the next ones,
Yeah, the store that just won't quit.
I'm still looking forward to when we can actually get information about this. If we are ever able to get information about what has happened to the Allscripts data centers and how that occurred. I know lots of people who we've had discussions trying to figure out. I mean, how did that happen?
Yeah, it's definitely changed the narrative when you talk to people and they go, "Oh, all my stuff's in the cloud."
Well, it's not just, we've talked about the cloud, and we think the cloud is especially for small groups, is probably better for them than having on-premise solutions. It's more secure if you use the security available to you. If you're not, that's different. But how did this vendor manage to be down so long?
This startup vendor.
Yeah, I know, really. Here's Allscripts, been around forever. And, from my clients and different groups that we work with who use their service, their big thing is, I think it was 2 weeks. And these are even the ones with the on-premise solution, some of the additional add-on services use the cloud. So that add-on service was not available to them for 2 weeks. And that just, it never in a million years, well, not in a million years, but never, if you had asked me this time last year, if I told you Allscripts was going to go down and lock down 2 data centers and be down for 2 weeks, would I have said, "Oh, I'm sure that'll happen"? I would say it's possible, but not probable.
Right.
So what were they missing? What did they do wrong? How come, David? How come?
I do not know.
Well, didn't you just go over there and knock on the door? It was in Charlotte and Raleigh.
I know.
Well, that's your assignment now. Go find it, knock on the door and say, "I need to ask you some questions."
Yeah. It was like I said, there's somebody somewhere in a room going, "What do you mean the backups didn't work?"
Well, it's some of those cases where I know you and I have had these conversations where everybody makes too many assumptions.
Yeah.
And
everybody thinks somebody else is taking care of it.
Or, there's a lot of technical people that are overconfident.
No.
Lots of them where they think, well, that's just not going to happen. I've had those conversations with vendors before, and I'll say, "Well, what are you going to do about this?" "Well, that's just not going to happen. That's not possible." Well, right now, you've just sealed your fate. It is now possible because you said it wasn't. And I'm sorry. It just drives me nuts.
Yeah. It will be interesting if we ever even find out the answers to those questions.
Well, you got to think that, there's so many things going on, which is why it's in this list, is there's already one lawsuit filed by a doctor's group down in Florida, and they're making it a class action suit. So, some others are going to join in.
Mm-hmm.
And from some of the things that I'm reading and some of the opinions, and who knows exactly how this will play out. It's going to take years for it to all play out as far as the court stuff goes, and you got to know going in that you got a chance, or are you just trying to be a gnat in somebody's face?
Yeah.
Because sometimes that's what they do. They just get mad and they take each other to court. But in this case, a lot of people think that they've got some really good standing, and this could make a huge difference in those cases where the vendors often think, well, I can just walk away from this. I'm not going to be held liable.
Mm-hmm.
So we're going to watch that one.
Speaking of being held liable. So we always talk about and fear the whole technology side of breaches and problems, but this is just from the good old snail mail.
I know. You remember we were doing one of our boot camps when this one hit the news everywhere. It was huge.
Uh-huh.
So and this was the big Aetna mailing incident where all of these letters went out to patients from Aetna And the window envelope had a humongous window. Do you remember seeing those? I mean, it was huge.
Yeah.
It had a humongous window, and inside that window fell parts of the letter which said, when filling prescriptions for HIV medications. So every single person that got that letter, it said essentially, this person, HIV. They're on HIV meds. Boom, boom. And I can't even imagine what that has done to these patients. Knowing, it's an invasion of privacy when these things happen. And this is way worse to me than a data breach, And a data breach, it's something gray in the cloud and you're just in a pile with a whole bunch of other people. This was laid out for all the neighbors and anybody that saw your mail to see.
I wonder why the mailman won't come to my door anymore.
It's a good thing it didn't happen back when everybody didn't understand that disease. And
I know.
Can't go to the bathroom after him. But that, for those of us that were around in the 80s, and so many people had misconceptions about the disease, and still that's a tough topic to talk about. But we're not in the clinical parts of the world, thankfully. I'll leave that to those who, if they'll just listen to me, don't do anything wrong while you're caring for your patients. That's all.
Mm-hmm.
That's all I ask. So then this is the one. So they're suing their business associate.
Yep.
So all you BAs out there who think that this, I'll just sign a BAA. I don't have to worry about what's in it. It's going to be becoming more and more as these companies, because Aetna's already settled with the New York attorney on this one for what, $17.5 million?
Yeah, and a little bit more than what I make in a year.
Don't say that. But at any rate, the bigger issue here is that they're suing a business associate. And it's referencing what's in their business associate agreement, and there's indemnification and all these other things. And it's more than just the settlement. I mean, there's a huge investigation that has to take place to identify all of the issues and how did this happen and who was involved and so on and so forth. So this is going to be interesting to see, particularly when there was another case in New York that just had an announcement relating to a vendor suing their business associate, which brings us to the sixth case of why you might need a lawyer.
No kidding.
You're a redneck. You need a lawyer when. But this case this goes back to a 2012 data breach. So it's a little long ago. This one is CVS Pharmacy is trying to get Press America to refund or to, cover their cost rather of the data breach involving a screwed up mailing, another mailing thing. So it has nothing to do really with the actual network being breached. So none of these things we've talked about involved anything really to do with cybersecurity in, what we would normally consider security protocols.
Mm-hmm.
Nothing. So just saying, it's not all about security controls and antivirus and all that kind of stuff when it comes to HIPAA. You got to know and understand what you're doing here if you're a business associate. And they're saying that the business associate was responsible for mailing information incorrectly addressed. So somehow it disclosed data of 41 individuals. So just 41 caused CVS to have to credit IBM $1,845,000.
Mm.
Yeah. So when you realize your clients are working in millions of dollars and a daily basis, that kind of money's coming through. If you're a business associate, you may not be dealing with $1 million a day, but they are. and it could happen. And here's where the thing came in. The business associate said, "It's not our fault."
Of course.
That you can't, you can't hit us in state law because you have to prove there's harm. A negligence claim has to say that we really should, that we've really damaged you in some way. And that was their argument because, of course, they had agreements and, statements of work and all that kind of stuff, but they also had a BAA. And so the business associates, lawyers they continued to take it, but the New York courts have now said, and this is why Aetna said, "Get on that bandwagon." The court explained that contracts contained indemnity provisions. How many times have you heard people sign a BAA and had no idea what was in it?
Mm-hmm. A lot.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, we've heard that more than once when you're talking with the HIPAA for MSPs folks that say, "Wait, what? I just signed that. I didn't know I had to do it."
They're all the same, right?
So it says that they could be held harmless for things arising out of or in connection with any breach of the terms of this agreement, any breach of private information under the control of the business associate or its agents or its subcontractors that require notification under the HIPAA rules or state rule, or failure to perform its obligations with respect to private information by the business associate's officers, employees, agents, any person or entity under their direction or control. So basically, according to the court, they're saying your business associate agreement says that if you fail to protect the information that requires notification under HIPAA or state law, or you fail to perform and make sure that you are protecting the private information, that second piece really got my attention. You know what it's saying there?
What's it saying there?
It's saying, under this, we could come after you even if there wasn't a data breach just because you failed to perform your obligations with respect to private information. So if someone in your office, we don't necessarily have to notify anybody, but due to your issues, there is a problem that has occurred and we learn about the problem, then we can still claim the indemnification.
So this was a BAA that they likely gave to Press America, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, there was a master agreement and a BAA, and the court says, CVS is allowed to ask you all of this because of what your actions are. Mm-hmm. And that the master agreement between the two and the BAA were broad enough to include all the cost that CVS has dealt with, including their payment to IBM in their lawsuit against the business associate.
Probably should have read that a little closer.
Well, and I think that's why Aetna has filed the same thing after their New York fiasco. And they $17.5 million they paid to the New York Attorney General. And that was not done either. That was going to keep looping, but it's interesting that they announced they're filing it shortly after the CVS ruling was announced.
Mm-hmm.
So,
yeah, those BAAs will get you.
They go get you one way or another. You better read them.
I know. I've had to come back with a few and be like, I ain't signing this.
Well, so you should know what's in them. And when it comes to training your staff, even if they say, "Oh, I know everything about HIPAA," I've had people tell me, "I worked at the hospital in IT for 10 years. I know everything about HIPAA. I'm married to a doctor. I know everything about HIPAA." No, unless you've administered it, and even then, I never feel like I know everything about it. I don't know about you. I constantly feel like I need to read more.
Yeah. Yeah. It's, thinking that you don't know it all keeps you, in the loop to know more. When you think you know it all, you just kind of stop, right? I don't know anymore.
Yeah. I don't need your information.
Right. I got this. I'll start up my own LinkedIn group.
Well, but after reading all of these and learning all of these, to see the legal implications that are becoming more apparent than ever before, that's why I'm looking at all of these ones that are being proposed by the state laws. And there's, discussions about having a federal one because the states are all over the place and you can't keep up. So that's where I wanted to get at least the thoughts from somebody that understands how all these laws apply and work in the real world, to get her thoughts on what's going on with that, and just to talk about what does GDPR really mean to us, because we still don't know that. I'm still kind of hiding from that one. I don't know about you.
Well, you best believe the powers that be are looking at it closely.
Yes, indeed. So she's got a lot of those, and so I'm looking forward to having her interviewed, and that'll be an interesting day for me.
Yeah. So that's a couple weeks from now, right?
Yeah, where we're interviewing her in March. So it'll come out the end of March is when. So it's about a month before you'll hear the interview, but we do all of these in advance. So if you've got questions, I'm giving you time to get them in before the interview. If there's something specific about what your state's doing or any of the laws that you've heard about, and you think it would be something that we could discuss in a very general form, not providing legal advice.
Yep. So the email for that is contact@helpmewithhipaa.com.
That, or hit us up on any of the social media sites, Twitter, Facebook, LinkedIn, what else?
You don't get on Facebook.
When you make me.
All right, folks, that's our show for today. Thanks for hanging in there and listening to my nasally voice. Please
I'm trying to carry it for you, buddy.
I know you did good. I'm struggling. Please remember to follow us, share us on your favorite social media site, rate us on our podcasting app. We need your help to spread the word. As always, you can send your questions and ideas to contact@helpmewithhipaa.com. For Donna and myself, remember, HIPAA is not about compliance. It's about patient care.
You've been listening to the Help Me with HIPAA podcast, hosted by Donna Grindle and David Sims. The show created to help you with HIPAA. For more information or to ask us a question, visit our website at helpmewithhipaa.com. Neither Donna Grindle or David Sims are attorneys, and they do not offer binding legal advice concerning regulatory compliance. The information in this podcast should not be relied upon or construed as legal advice in any way. Consult your attorney for legal advice concerning compliance with HIPAA regulations.